It is a study in how folklore adapts to terrorize a new generation. Our investigation begins not in the distant past, but in the heart of a modern public panic. The year is 1979. The location is Nagasaki Prefecture, Japan. A wave of profound and specific fear is sweeping through the region, an epidemic of terror that authorities are struggling to contain. The phenomenon is not a disease nor a tangible threat, but a rumor, a story. Yet its effects are undeniably real. Primary schools, citing a public safety risk, begin organizing group escorts to ensure children are not walking home alone. Parent-teacher associations form volunteer patrols. Police departments increase their presence in neighborhoods after dusk. A palpable anxiety settles over the community, an unease that centers on a single terrifying figure described with unsettling consistency by frightened children. The hysteria becomes so pronounced that it is documented in newspapers and academic journals, a case study in modern mass panic. But to the people living through it, this was no academic exercise. It was a city under siege by a ghost. To understand the entity that terrorized a modern Japanese city, we must unearth the roots of the story. A legend purported to originate centuries earlier during the Heian period. This was the age of the samurai, an era governed by a strict code of honor, beauty, and brutal consequence. The original subject of the legend is described as a woman of unparalleled beauty, the wife or consort of a samurai. She was acutely aware of her own allure, and she was vain. This vanity, the story goes, led her to infidelity.
When her samurai husband discovered her betrayal, his reaction was not one of sorrow, but of possessive, violent rage. His honor had been insulted, but more than that, his ownership of her beauty had been challenged. He took his sword, and in a single horrific act of punishment, he sliced her mouth open from ear to ear, permanently destroying the feature she valued most. As she lay bleeding, he is said to have asked her a question, a cold rhetorical curse. "Watashi, Yūrei, am I pretty?" This question is a fatal trap, a conversational gambit where every answer leads to ruin.
If the victim answers no, she will kill them instantly. The weapon is most often described as a pair of oversized scissors or a sickle concealed within her coat. If the victim answers yes, she will slowly lower her surgical mask, revealing the horrific gaping wound that mutilates her face. Her mouth, slit from ear to ear, is a permanent bloody grin. She will then ask the question again. If the victim now screams, recoils, or answers no, they are killed, often cut in half. If they manage to overcome their terror and answer yes a second time, the outcome is just as grim. In some accounts, she follows them to the very threshold of their home and murders them on their doorstep. In others, she produces her blade and slits the victim's own mouth, making them just as beautiful as she is. Over the course of the panic, a frantic folklore of survival emerged. Witnesses claimed that to escape, one must confuse her. Answering her question with an ambiguous response like, "You're average," or "so-so," could momentarily stun her, providing a chance to flee. A bizarre but widely circulated defense was the word pomade. Shouting it 3 times was said to repel her, the supposed reference to a foul-smelling hair product that samurai used, which she finds repulsive. The most practical defense was distraction. Throwing hard candies or money on the ground would compel her to stop and pick them up, buying the victim precious seconds to escape. The archives contain a transcript of a retrospective interview with a retired police officer, whom we shall refer to as Officer Tanaka, who worked in Nagasaki during the 1979 panic. His official reports, he states, were unequivocal. The incidents were a textbook case of mass hysteria, fueled by media reports and playground rumors. There were no bodies, no physical evidence. Officially, the Kuchisake-onna did not exist.
His private recollections, however, are tinged with an unsettling ambiguity. We would take dozens of reports a week, his testimony reads, all from children, and every story was the same. The trench coat, the mask, the question. They described her with a clarity that was disturbing. These weren't just scared children telling ghost stories. They were frightened witnesses describing the same perpetrator. We increased patrols. We told the public to remain calm, but we were looking for a person. The children, however, they insisted she wasn't a person. They said you could see right through her in the dim streetlights. He concludes his testimony with a note of lingering doubt. We closed the case. The panic died down, but I cannot explain how an entire city came to have the exact same nightmare all at once. The legend of the Kuchisake-onna is a remarkable case study in the evolution of fear. It is an entity that is twice manifested in the Japanese cultural consciousness, each time as a perfect reflection of the anxieties of its era. In the feudal context of the Heian period, she was a specter born of domestic horror. She represented the fears of marital infidelity, the terrifying power of a husband's jealousy, and the brutal consequences of defying a patriarchal order. Her story was a personal, intimate one, a cautionary tale of what happens behind the closed doors of a samurai's home. In 1979, she was reborn as a monster of the modern age. Her story was no longer a domestic drama, but a tale of urban anonymity and the fear of the stranger. The surgical mask, once a symbol of public health, became a tool of concealment, a representation of the unknowable dangers hiding behind the mundane faces in a crowded city. Her obsessive question about beauty resonated in a society grappling with increasingly rigid aesthetic standards and the pressures of conformity. The Kuchisake-onna is not merely a ghost, she is an era. Its scar reflects the wounds of her time, and her story endures because the fears that created her have never truly disappeared. What is more permanent, a scar on the flesh or a story that refuses to die?